So for those who don't know me, I'm Karen Dion. I write psychological suspense set in Michigan's Upper Peninsula wilderness. I have two novels in that category, The Marsh King's Daughter and The Wicked Sister, and they were both international bestsellers. The books are published in a total of, I think it's 27 languages now, and they've been bestsellers in several countries. And the one book, The Marsh King's Daughter, will be releasing this year as a major motion picture starring Daisy Ridley and Ben Mendelsohn. Now, to the official bios. I'm going to do these alphabetically. Our first author guest tonight is Tracy Clark. Hey, Tracy.
Hello.
She's the author of the award-winning Cass Raines Chicago Mystery Series and the Detective Harriet Foster series. She's a Chicago native and sets her books there. A multi-nominated Anthony, Lefty, Edgar, McCavity, and Seamus Award finalist, Tracy also won the 2020 and 2022 G.P. Putnam's Sons Sue Grafton Memorial Award and the 2022 Sarah Paretsky Award, which honors writers from the Midwest. And I have to say, as an author myself, winning these awards, that means a lot. It's lovely to have a bestseller, but to have recognition for the quality of your work, that's really outstanding. So congrats on that. Hyde is her new police procedural featuring Detective Harriet Foster of the Chicago Police Department, and it released just this past January. Tracy loves old black and white movies, a good nap, and a really spicy ginger snap served with ice cold milk. Man, that sounds good.
I know, right?
It does. Gregg Hurwitz is the #1 New York Times bestselling author of the Orphan X series featuring off-the-books assassin Even Smoke. The 8th book in the series, The Last Orphan, was just released on February 14 and is available now. And Gregg is actually in the middle of his book tour. He is not home. He's calling in from who knows where, somewhere in between events for this one. His novels have won numerous literary awards and have been published in 33 languages. Additionally, he's written screenplays and television script for many of the major studios and networks, comics for AWA, DC, and Marvel, poetry, and political and culture pieces for the Wall Street Journal, The Guardian, The Bulwark, and others. Wow. Gregg's Field's research takes him flying stunt airplanes, going undercover into cults, eating scorpions, and more to bring readers a front row seat to the action. Gregg, we have a question in our 20 questions. What scares you the most and what's the most adventurous thing you've ever done? I'm not going to ask you those questions.
Fair enough.
Okay, awesome. B.A. Paris is the author of 6 psychological thrillers, including Behind Closed Doors and The Therapist. Her latest novel is The Prisoner. The first novel, Behind Closed Doors, was a publishing phenomenon. It sold over 3.5 million copies worldwide and has been translated into 40 languages. That's just amazing. And then her second novel, The Breakdown, has been optioned for a film. B.A. spent most of her adult life in France. She recently moved back to the UK. Before becoming a writer, she worked both in finance and a teacher. And her 7th novel, The Guest, is out later this year. So you can ask her about those in the breakout room. And lastly, we have as a guest tonight, Phillippi Ryan. She's the USA Today bestselling author of 14 psychological thrillers, winning the genre's most prestigious awards, 5 Agathas, 5 Anthonys, and the coveted Mary Higgins Clark Award. Book critics call her a master of suspense and a superb and gifted storyteller. And she's the only author to have won the Agatha in 4 categories: Best First, Best Novel, Best Nonfiction, and Best Short Story. Hank is also the on-air investigative reporter for Boston's WHDH-TV, and she's won 37 Emmys and dozens more journalism honors. She's a founder of MWA University, host of True Crime on a Mighty Blaze, and co-host of First Chapter Fun and The Back Room, and is a past president of the National Sisters in Crime. She lives in Boston with her husband, a civil rights and criminal defense attorney. That sounds very convenient when it comes to book research, Hank.
Good to have in-house counsel, absolutely.
Absolutely. And so now that we all know who's with us tonight, we're going to have a little fun. We're going to play a quick game of not quite 20 questions. we actually have official backroom cards. Can you see these with questions on the other side? So, we're not making this up. This is the real deal. Hank, are you feeling nervous?
Extremely, overwhelmingly.
It's funny.
Glad I'm not first on the screen.
Yes, you're not. It's funny because we're usually asking the questions, and it's true when the shoe is on the other foot, you do feel a little nervous, but they're very easy questions.
Sure.
PA, you're first up. What
Okay.
was your favorite book as a child?
Probably The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. I remember sitting on the floor of the library reading that one, of the travelling library that used to come around, and I must have been about 8 years old. Loved it.
Yeah. And no doubt it just, like kindled that desire to lose yourself in the world of books, right?
Absolutely, because I remember reading it and then being told by the librarian that they had to move off, and just coming out of this world that I was in. And it was such a shock to wake up and find out that I was, in the travelling library. And that just blew me away, that I could actually be taken into this other world by a book.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
I loved that. I didn't read it till I was in college, of all things. And I still think about it every time I open a closet.
Yeah, this is true.
That's cool. Gregg, name a book that you can read over and over again.
The Great Gatsby.
Ooh.
And every time I read it, it's I'm a different person. I think this is true of great works, right? I used to read it every year when I was in high school and college. I loved it. I hadn't read it in about 10 years. And then I went back and read it during the pandemic. And I realized that my experience as a ostensible adult was 180 degrees the interpretation I'd carried with me my whole life. It was amazing. So it's like they say, you never step into the same river twice. I think you also never read the same great work twice. You're always changed when you come back to it.
That is really interesting. I'm going to have to go back and look at some of the ones that made an impact on me too, and see how different they are now. Thanks. Tracy, what was the title of the first thing you ever wrote?
For Services Rendered was the title of a short story. I sort of called myself practicing how to write a book. So I figured I'd start short. So I started a short story, finished it, and I said, oh, that wasn't so hard. I think I can write a book now. Then, of course, 20 years passed until I actually sort of got the hang of it. So yeah, For Services Rendered was the name of my first story.
Do you still have it by any chance?
I still have it, actually, and I submitted it, and it got picked up. So I sort of sold my first short story, which is kind of unprecedented. It's stupid and weird. But yeah, so that sort of gave me the confidence to sort of dig in there and try to write a novel.
Wow, that's awesome. That's really cool. Thank you. Hank, what's the last book you read that made you cry?
It was, I know this, and I just read it, and it is Michael Corrida's new novel. And now I'm going to space on the title of it.
We'll forgive you. Hank's been
somebody look it up. Michael Corrida's new book. It's upstairs. It's a thriller. It's a mystery. It's a family saga. And in the end, it's so poignant and so touching that I started crying. And I read it for a blurb. And I emailed Michael and I said, I love this book and etc. But it really made me cry. And he wrote back that was his absolute goal as a thriller writer, was to write thrillers that made people cry. Mm-hmm. So if somebody can look up what the name of Michael Corrida's new novel is, and don't tell him that I forgot, you are in for a treat.
Perfect. Thanks. We'll pop that in the chat. BA, do you have any hidden talents?
No, not really. I wish I did. I wish there was something I was really good at. I like baking. I make really good cakes, but apart from that, no, I can't think of anything. Sorry.
You're good at staying awake, clearly.
Yeah, and staying awake. Yeah, I can get by on very little sleep, actually. I only ever sleep about 4 or 5 hours a night. So that's probably a hidden talent because it gives me lots of time to do other things.
That's lovely. I like that. Gregg, do you consider yourself a good liar?
There's a question for you.
Well, how do you know how I'm going to answer the question, Karen? Sure. No. Yes.
All right.
No. I don't know how to lie at all.
Yeah. Well, and lying, of course, I think of as being different than writing fiction. That's not the same thing. Fiction, we make things up, but lying is a different category altogether, right?
I try to be compulsively honest because then I never have to remember which lie I told.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love it. Tracy, what is something that you cannot do?
I can't dance. I never was able to. No, I can't dance. Don't ask me. Yeah, I don't dance.
All right. I'm with you there too. We'll not dance together at the next ball. Hank, what was the name of your first pet?
Oh, the name of my first pet was an Irish setter named Rusty. Clever name. Then we had another Irish setter named Penny. Then we had another Irish setter named Roderick St. John. Then we had a cat named Rosemary. And then Rosemary's babies were F. Scott and Zelda. And we had two gerbils named Chet and David, but Rosemary ate the gerbils. And that was my pet life.
Wow.
I'm surprised you didn't just name Rosemary's babies Rosemary's Baby.
Well, it was F. Scott and Zelda were in my brain at the time, and so I thought that was so funny. It wasn't that funny.
For now, we would like, each author has come prepared to recommend a book, and I think Hank has already recommended the book in the course of the questions, but officially now, BA, what book do you think that everybody should read that you read and were just blown away by?
Okay, so I'm recommending Louise Candlish, The Only Suspect. It's her latest book. I became a fan of hers when she wrote Our House, which has been made into a television series. And I love her books because they're always very different. And the reason I like this one is because it has a dual timeline. And so some of it takes place in the 1990s. So there's lots of references there that I enjoy. And of course, it was great then because there were no mobile phones or anything. So as Louise herself said, it was great to base some of her book in the 1990s because it's so much easier when people can't be tracked down with mobile phones. There's also a multiple narratives in this book. It's full of tension, suspense, and yeah, it's a story that I really recommend if you like a good thriller. So this is the one I recommend.
Thank you. And Gregg, you're up next. What book are you recommending? Okay, that's
it is Poster Girl by Veronica Roth. It's an extraordinary book. She is really talented. We had her as one of our spotlight guests at Thriller Fest last year. That's what the cover looks like. And this is a futuristic book, and she's playing around a lot with kind of Orwellian concepts about privacy and power and the ways that they're held in check or not held in check. It's very twisty and turny. And what I like the most is that it doesn't get it all ideological or simplistic. She really paints in, I would say, more than 50 shades of gray on the characters, on the plotting, and on the nuance. So it really made me think, and I was incredibly impressed with it.
That's fantastic to hear. Thank you. Tracy, what book are you recommending?
I am recommending Time's Undoing by Cheryl Head. And it's sort of part historical, part contemporary. We follow a young journalist in 2019 who goes back to sort of investigate the unsolved murder of her great-grandfather in Birmingham, Alabama in 1929. And so we shift from timeline to timeline, 29 to 2019, as she sort of unravels this unsolved mystery, this unsolved murder. And it's beautifully written. Cheryl Head has also a PI series that she sort of writes, which I also love. But this one really dives deep. It's really beautifully written. It's really nuanced and multi-layered, and I think readers will enjoy it immensely.
I've been hearing good things about it too. So yeah, you're not the only one loving it. Yeah, thank you. Hank, what book are you recommending everyone read?
I'm recommending All That Is Mine, I Carry With Me by William Landay. Everybody remembers Defending Jacob, which came out some years ago, maybe 9 years ago, and then was made into a fantastic Apple series. And Defending Jacob was just such a marvelous, thoughtful legal thriller. And Bill hasn't written a book for a long time. And in All That Is Mine, I Carry With Me, he breaks every rule that you could possibly break in writing a novel. And it is absolutely sensational.
Thank you. Wow, that's very exciting.
Wasn't that fun? We hope you enjoyed this taste of what a backroom event is like. The best part comes immediately after, when the audience is divided into 4 breakout rooms and the authors visit each room in turn. We'd love to show you what a breakout session is like, because these relaxed face-to-face conversations between authors and readers are the hallmark of our backroom events. But breakout sessions are never recorded. What's said in the backroom stays in the backroom.